Praise the Lord, everyone. Welcome back to TDC here in Decatur, Texas. Welcome to the first live-streamed English Bible study of 2021, and also our last live-streamed English Bible study. Starting next week, we'll be having Zoom Bible studies for the youth on Thursday nights rather than live-streamed ones on Friday nights. But I'm grateful that you are here on our very last one. Feel free to comment, share any of your thoughts, your opinions, any questions. Tonight we're going to be talking about building your walls or rebuilding your walls. And these are spiritual walls. And walls are built to guard or protect a people. When I think of walls, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Great Wall of China, because it's like a very popular wall. But walls are built to guard, to be a defense, and it surrounds the city that it's protecting. It surrounds what it's protecting. And we want our hearts to be protected. We want our lives to be protected, our souls to be protected, because we're trying to reach eternity, and we want it to be protected from this world that we have to go through right now. So we're going to be reading from the book of Nehemiah. We're going to be looking at where the walls of Jerusalem had been destroyed. They had been turned to ashes and rubble and debris, and how God had called Nehemiah to rebuild these walls of Jerusalem. So we're going to read Nehemiah in chapter 4. We're going to read verse 6 to start off. And verse 6 says, "So we built the wall, and all the wall was joined together to half its height, for the people had a mind to work." So they were building, and they had already built the wall already to half of its height. "The life of man is in ruins without the presence of God. It is vain to try to build life on a pile of rubble. The debris, ashes, and rubble in the life of the human being is the result of trying to build a life without God. When we try to build a life without God, the foundation is just sand. It vanishes. It's not strong. It's not firm. The foundation is sand. So when problems come in life, we crumble, or people crumble, because of the lack of foundations. And we see this in Matthew chapter 7. I'm going to read Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7, verses 26 and 27 read, "And he said to them," I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong chapter. 26 and 27. "And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house. And it fell, and great was the fall of it." So we need God to be our firm foundation to build a house, to build our life. And we need God to have a great wall surrounding our hearts, surrounding our souls, to protect us. So without God, we are incomplete. We're unstable, and we are unprotected, and we're exposed to the world, exposed to dangerous things that may come against us. So we need more of Jesus. And the more of Jesus that we have through prayer and through fasting and through reading his word, the more protected we are from making mistakes and having bad thoughts and participating in things of the world. Now, temptation will still come. If we're very close to God, temptation will still come and try to knock down our walls. But when we have God protecting our hearts, we are stronger to say no to the things of the world. We are stronger to say no to it and stronger to say yes to God. So we need God to be our foundation and our wall. So if you never knew how to protect your soul, how to protect your life, or maybe you did know, but you've let your walls fall apart, right now is the best time to rebuild those walls. Just as Nehemiah and his people were rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, right now is the time to get to know Jesus. Right now is the time to build these walls again. But know that when you try to build these walls up again to protect your spirit, your heart, there will be opposition. Whenever Nehemiah and his people were rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, everyone conspired against them. If we read a little bit further ahead in Nehemiah, in verse 8, chapter 4, verse 8, we see how they were conspiring against doing this work that God had inspired. Verse 8 says, "And they all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and to cause confusion in it." They were all plotting together, conspiring against what God had instructed Nehemiah to do. When Nehemiah decided to rebuild the city walls, he got a great surprise. The enemy was not willing to give in so that the city could be built. So these people were intentionally against Nehemiah. The enemy comes intentionally against us. But God had put it in Nehemiah's heart. If we were to read a chapter before, it says that this is something that God put in Nehemiah's heart, to rebuild the walls. So when things come against you, just as these people, the enemy came against Nehemiah, don't give up. Don't give up whenever opposition comes your way. And don't question your calling. If you're doing what God has called you to do and people oppose you, something comes against you, life comes against you, don't question your calling. Don't say, maybe I was wrong. Maybe God doesn't actually want me here. Maybe I shouldn't actually come to church anymore. Maybe I shouldn't help with Bible studies anymore. Maybe I shouldn't assist my pastor anymore because of the opposition. No, don't question it and don't give up, because Nehemiah also faced opposition and Jesus also faced opposition. When you are trying to turn your life around, you're trying to rebuild these walls, just as they were rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. You might notice that, the world looks a little more appealing now that you're trying to get closer to God. Alcohol looks a little bit more tasty now that you're trying to get closer to God. Now, your toxic friends look like they're really having a lot of fun out there now that you're trying to, turn your life around, right? Because temptation will always come from everywhere, and it will come more. Maybe, you're scrolling through your feed and you see more and more things that tempt you as you're trying to get closer to God. Or maybe, ads come up, or, your Facebook feed, or the people that talk to you, maybe you start getting messages. But don't give up when things come against you. Don't question when there's opposition. We have something to defend us, and that is prayer. Prayer is the greatest weapon that Christians have. We pray to our God. The Christian's most powerful weapon is prayer. It is so powerful that it moves the entire sky in your favor. In Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 9, where we were reading, where they were facing opposition, it says, "And we prayed to our God." So whenever they were conspiring against Nehemiah and his people, doing the work of God, this is what they did. "And we prayed to our God and set a guard as a protection against them day and night." Prayer with faith moves the hand of God to your help. Whatever you ask in prayer, believing, you can receive. The only obstacle in prayer is your unbelief. And that is stated in Mark 11:24. Mark 11:24 says, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours." You have to pray with faith. Believe that you've already received it and it will be yours. You want healing, you want forgiveness, you want a change of heart. Believe that you have it and it will be yours. And we're also going to look at James chapter 1, verses 6 through 7. And it reads, "But let him ask in faith with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord." Don't expect to receive something if you're having doubts in your prayer. If you're questioning that God actually has the power to do it, don't question it. Don't be doubtful. Believe it. Otherwise, we can't expect to receive anything if we're having doubts. So, if prayer is the most powerful weapon that we have as children of God, shouldn't that be the first thing that we go to when opposition comes, when trial comes, obstacles? But sometimes we forget. And the first thing that we do when we're in the middle of a life crisis is go to our phones, is go to watch a K-drama, is go to listen to sad music, or go back to maybe some toxic friends to get hyped up about, your haters and stuff. But sometimes it's good to have friends and people to talk to, a counselor, and music can definitely lift your spirits, but that shouldn't be the first thing that we turn to. Prayer is the strongest weapon. We should pray first. It's hard to do that first, I would say, when we have trials or problems, because when we go to friends, we have instant results. When we go to, drugs to numb the pain, we have instant results. If we go to listen to sad music, we have instant results. Something is soothing us in the middle of our problems. But whenever it comes to prayer, we have to be patient. We have to wait until God says, until God moves. We have to wait. But prayer, regardless, is the ultimate weapon. It's the most powerful weapon that we have. So let's try to change that one little thing. Instead of running to something else before God when we have a problem, let's run to prayer first. Let's run to God first. Okay. So these people were conspiring against Nehemiah to stop the work. They wanted to stop the work completely. Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 10 through 11. Read. (10 through 11) says, "In Judah it was said, 'The strength of those who bear the burdens is failing. There is too much rubble. By ourselves we will not be able to rebuild the wall.' And our enemies said, 'They will not know or see till we come among them and kill them and stop the work.'" They wanted to stop this work that God had approved of. The hosts of evil try to weaken you when you decide to get up. But be persistent and get rid of feelings that the devil will put over your life. Be persistent and get rid of feelings. We don't want to be led by emotions. Remember, the enemy can only make you believe that you can't, but it's up to you to believe him. It's up to you to believe him. He knows that he cannot stop you unless you believe. When you have God, the enemy can't stop you. He can tell you that you're going to fail. He can tell you that he's going to come against you and stop the work. But you have God, and you know that God can take you through it. Even if you think, well, I don't really have God. I mean, I'm just dabbling into church, or I'm barely coming back into church and stuff. Like, I don't think that I'm that strong with God yet. No. As soon as you start seeking God, God is already on your side. He's already meeting you there. And he's already defending you where you're at. So yes, you can do it even when there's opposition, because once you start seeking him, God is already there backing you up. But the enemy wants to put fear in our hearts. He wants us to be afraid and back out and not believe that we can do it, not believe that we can rebuild this fortress, this wall to protect us. And this fear was also trying to be put into the people of God here with Nehemiah. Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 12 through 16 says, "At that time the Jews who lived near them came from all directions and said to us 10 times, 'You must return to us.' So in the lowest parts of the space behind the wall, in open places, I stationed the people by their clans, with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles and to the officials and to the rest of the people, 'Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes.'" This spiritual battle that we are in, we're not fighting it just for ourselves. We're fighting it for our brothers, our sons and daughters and wives and homes. We're fighting it for the generations to come and the generation that we are in as well. So fear came from all places, all directions. These Jews were coming and saying, "Nehemiah, like, bring your people back. Like, come back to us. Like, you can't do it. Like, you're about to be destroyed. Come back." From all different places. One tactic that the enemy uses to stop you, is that you manage to believe him that from all sides, everyone or something is against you, to terrorize you and make you a victim of circumstances and thus be able to defeat you. He wants you to be afraid. He wants you to have fear. Never allow a victim spirit in your life. Lift others up to intercede for you, and do not let yourself be frightened by the devil's threats. So Nehemiah's own people, the other Jews that were coming from everywhere, and they came 10 times and they said, "Hey, come back, come back. Like, they're on their way to kill you. They're on their way to destroy you. Building this wall is not that great of an idea. Like, let's come back." But Nehemiah did not lose hope. He said, hey, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome. So whenever you start seeking God again, or you're trying to rebuild your walls and things come against you and you start thinking, man, like maybe I can't do it, or you start hearing these voices saying, it's not worth it, it's so much easier out here, people are against you, or maybe it's not even people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome. This fear, it's up to you to believe. The enemy will want you to believe you're not going to make it. I've already got you, but it's up to us to believe him. Fear is the devil's favorite weapon to prevent your life from being rebuilt on the rock that is Christ. Do not try to justify yourself before the attacks of your enemies. They will not believe your explanation. It is better to pray to God, and he will give the victory in your life. So you can do it. Just as Nehemiah had this faith to rebuild these walls so that God's people, God's city can be protected, they were able to do it because of their faith. And when all the people came 10 times and said, hey, come back, they're conspiring to destroy you, to kill you, Nehemiah didn't stop. He didn't give up. So when we face opposition, don't stop. Don't give up. And don't believe that you're not close enough to God yet. Because as soon as you start seeking him, God is already defending you. God is already on your side. So this calling, this plan that God has for you in your life, don't question it because of opposition. Now, I realize that opposition is big, and I'm not trying to make it sound small and say, oh, it's just opposition, just don't let your emotions get in the way. No, I realize that opposition comes in different forms, and it is big. And on my end, it's been big too, but just remember that God is bigger and God is on your side. I want to take a moment to read a few of these comments that we have. We have my tia Socorro. We have the Morales family. God bless you. From Mexico, God bless, que Dios los bendiga. We have Sister Sylvia, whom I responded to actually through my own account. Brother Polo, and the hermano Raudel, and Brother Pearson. Pearson, it's good to hear from you again. But yes, fear. And fear, these things that the devil tells us, it's just up to us to believe it. Before we dismiss, I want to take a moment to give a prayer request to anybody that would like to participate in blessing my family, or if you want to be a part of this blessing as well. I want to ask some prayer requests for my grandpa, that he can leave this earth peacefully and without pain, and to give my family hope, which is my mom's family, that my mom and her siblings can have courage and faith that we will see my grandpa again. It's hard because in this life, if we'll never see him again, it's really difficult, but with the Holy Spirit's strength, I ask that you please pray for them. And also, as they make their way to Colorado to see my grandpa, that they can have a safe trip, safe from COVID, safe from accidents, and that God may protect them and take them there safely and bring them back safely as well. And with this, I finish. Thank you guys for joining. Don't forget that next Friday we will not be here live streaming. So after the Spanish Bible study, that will be it for the night. Thank you to everybody that's been joining us since months before. I encourage you to invite and encourage your youth to join us on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. We'll be sharing the Zoom ID and password so that any English speakers can join us for next Thursday. And God bless you all.